Hi guys. So hope you all had a good break with the week off, relaxing. I am going to be combining two lectures into one format, simplifying it for you as we go along. The first one will be reviewing and compiling and synthesizing, let's say, the Italian sonnet concept, and then I'll shift to the English sonnet concept. The idea here is there are two cultural versions of this type of poem. Okay. Now, if you have been talking to of the face-to-face students, they are doing a different final project. You are not going to be doing the same concept they are. Again, I've simplified it. So on Wednesday, I'll be posting the expectations for your final Lone Star project. It deals with research. And remember, Lone Star ends their semester sooner than the high school. So you'll be given a number of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, to compile this research together. Your version is simplified from the face-to-face version. So with that being said, the other thing I want to comment on, if you go out to the Schoology, I've readjusted some of the folders as of this afternoon, so just be aware there might be some slight changes out there. So be that as it may, let's do a quick review of what an Italian sonnet actually is, and then we can move forward and discuss what an English sonnet, how the English took it in a whole different direction. Okay, so the thing to remember, the sonnets have been around for over 700 years. They were originally created, or we say they were originally created by Francisco Petrarch. There's some speculation that they were created earlier, but he's been given the title due to his influence over humanism or the Italian Renaissance. Okay. Either way you look at it, he popularized the form. So because of his actions and his writing, he made it a popular form that the average Italian could relate to. Now, there is a recognizable formula that has to be used in order for a sonnet to be labeled a sonnet. So the case as it is, a sonnet, officially, a generic sonnet, is a poem with a recognizable formula. It has a single thought or theme, and the thought or theme is twisted or challenged or confirmed into a second theme. So I'll break that down again in just a second. The term itself, sonnet, means little song in Italian. So what Petrarch had done, he discovered, traditionally we say this, he discovered a lyric that was being developed in what is now either southern France or northern Italy, that region of where the borders come together. He discovered a song that was being played there. He really admired it, but he wanted to do a prose version, so he twisted it into what we call the sonnet today. And it's just a little lyric. Okay, now it's a very popular form. There are many different types of sonnets. To keep this simple, for this week, we're only talking about Italian and English. Okay. Now, under the title of English, there's something called Spenserian. So I'm going to go over that either Tuesday or Wednesday. You have probably heard the term Shakespearean sonnet. That's due to the fact that the poems written, that's assumed to be written by Shakespeare, he popularized, for the English, he popularized the sonnet. So that form that he mainly follows throughout that publication is referred to as a Shakespearean sonnet. Personally, I like to call it the English sonnet because of the controversy behind the publication. It may not have been William Shakespeare, the playwright, who wrote those poems. Personally, I keep shifting focus. Some days I say it is Shakespeare, some days I say it isn't. So this week I'm saying it's not Shakespeare. Keep in mind, an English sonnet is slightly different than an Italian sonnet. So the Italians came up with the concept. 200 years later, the English reinvented the form. Now, when I say traditional sonnet, definition of a traditional sonnet, for a sonnet to be a sonnet, basically, it has to have 14 lines, there has to be a chosen rhyme scheme, and there has to be strategic meter. Likewise, and this is the important one, there has to be something referred to as a volta near the middle or end of the verse. This volta is basically a turn in the theme or a shift in the theme. Sometimes, like I said a second ago, sometimes the poet will establish one theme and then at line 9, he'll confirm that the theme or stress that the point of the poem is a particular theme. So now, what we have here, because you're dealing with 14 lines, because there's a rhyme scheme of alternating rhymes, A, B, A, B, okay? The math will not allow you to divide the verse into 7 lines for the themes. If you need me to re-explain that, just hit me up with a question. But basically, because you're dealing with 4 alternating rhymes, okay, you can't divide the poem up 7-7. It's divided up 8 and 6. So the first 8 lines will carry a theme. The secondary 6 lines will either twist the theme or confirm the theme. 8 plus 6 is 14. Now, I might make this a little more confusing with the next comment. Okay, so the way you display the octave and the sestet, you're going to be using stanzas. The stanzas themselves can be divided up mathematically, either by tercets, which are 3 lines, quatrain, which is 4 lines, couplet, which is 2 lines. These terms here I'll be using exclusively when I discuss the poems. Likewise, I'll be talking about octave and sestet themes. So one last time I'll repeat this. An octave, the first 8 lines. The sestet, the remaining 6 lines. Tercet 3, quatrain 4, couplet 2. This will make more sense as I go through showing you different types of writing. This is a basic modern sonnet. It's written by Charles Simic. It's called History. Keep in mind that is an important title for the poem. In the opening octave, he establishes the main theme. He writes, "On a gray evening of a gray century, I ate an apple while no one was looking. A small, sour apple, the color of wood fire, which I first wiped on my sleeve." Okay, now let me make some comments. This is a very mundane, and I'll use the word ordinary, concept. However, he's taking it into a new direction and a new area. Do notice it's not rhyming. However, this is what is called a blank sonnet, meaning it has no rhyme. It has no standard meter. However, it has 14 lines, as I indicate here. It has 14 lines, and it does contain a volta. That is what makes a sonnet a sonnet. So this ordinary, mundane scene of someone sitting in an easy chair, alone in a room by himself, eating an apple. That's the basic scene. There's no one around. He's bored. He's bored with his life. It almost appears as if he's in a rut. The only color that appears in the first two stanzas is the apple itself. It's small, it's sour, but it's the color of wood fire. He doesn't say red, he doesn't say orange, he doesn't say yellow, he says wood fire. So that lets the imagination go wild, basically. And he's going to wipe it on his sleeve, as he says. Okay, that's the first 8 lines. Now we're going to shift into the sestet. You have the word then. That word is the volta. So any transitionary phrase or transitionary word acts as a volta. Now, I won't kid you. There are some cases where a volta is inferred, okay? But for the most part, my examples will be solid and in front of you. And I'll point them out as they are where I'll point them out where they're located in the poem. I want you to be clearly understanding what a volta is and where it exists in the poem. That is what makes a sonnet a sonnet. Okay. So the sestet, the remaining 6 lines go, "Then I stretched my legs as far as they'd go. Said to myself, why not close my eyes now, before the late world news and weather." Notice how it shifts from a mundane activity to an even further, if not stronger, sense of an everyday life. This guy with his apple is alone in a room. He eats the apple, and he's right in front of the TV. That's all he has. That's all his world. But he's got this slight epiphany moment here. Why not close my eyes now? He's considering making a change in his life. He's considering not watching the news. Because he knows, basically, because it's a gray evening of a gray century, if he watches the news, he's only going to get more depressed. So he considers not watching it. And if you look at the title again, it's called History. So his own personal history is repeating, and that's where I say he's stuck in a rut. He's done this before. He will do it again. He's almost dehumanized. He's considering shifting out of this phase. Okay. I like Charles Simic because he'll often take simple, and I don't mean that as a negative, he takes basic ideas and adds a lot of symbolism and energy into these concepts. The more you read his work, the more you'll see it. But either way, this is a sonnet, 14 lines. He has chosen not to use a rhyme scheme. He has chosen not to use meter, but he has the volta. He has a shift of one theme, and he's strengthening it into another. And that is what makes it a sonnet. Okay. Okay, this page is just confirming what we've already discussed. As far as Petrarch is concerned, I'm going to speed up a little here. Petrarch was involved with the business end of the Roman Catholic Church. He did write a lot of material. He lived to an old man in his 60s for that time period. Okay, but it's because of Petrarch we have the common themes that are in the sonnet. He established the traditional elements that are important for a love poem. Okay, now for the Italian version of this, because it's about love, you need conflict. You're going to have a character referred to as the poet or the poet speaker. You're going to have a character referred to as the beloved, the intended interest of the said poet speaker. Okay. This can come across in today's modern atmosphere as being an aggressive, passive-aggressive, stalking situation where the poet is so deeply, madly obsessing over this beloved figure, he can't stop talking about her. He can't stop sending her poems. He can't stop leaving flowers on her porch. Okay. If one is not careful, this can come across as negative. But the reason these poems work is because they relate to a situation where anyone has had a crush on someone else and it's not reciprocated. So you'll have a long series of days, weeks, maybe months, where all you could think about is that one person who rejected you. And you're all alone in the world and you don't know what to do. So you oversleep, you avoid your friends, you don't use your social media, and you just write these moody notes in your journal. Okay? That's what they're trying to relate to, the poets. Okay. Do be sure you read over these qualities under the Italian sonnet list. But they're common sense. Once you get on this train, it makes a lot of sense. Okay. The control that the beloved has over the poet is very strong. And so let me mention this really quick. The poet would kill for the beloved. If she told him to go out and kill her cousin because he is annoying her, the poet would do it. That's how deeply in love he is. Okay. If she said, oh, go kill yourself, you're bothering me, he would do it. He's that obsessive, that he's that under her thumb, so to speak. Likewise, because we're talking about love, there's going to be a lot of mention of Venus or Aphrodite. Then there'll be a lot of mention of Cupid or Eros. So Venus is the Roman version of Aphrodite, who's the Greek goddess of love. Cupid is the Roman version of Eros, who is the god of love. Cupid is the son of Venus. Likewise, Eros is the son of Aphrodite. Okay. If you think of any typical Valentine's Day card with that little Cupid, that little baby with the bow and arrow, that applies to these poems. Okay. A really bad sonnet, you can't relate to it at all. It's either sickeningly sweet and gushy and moody and whiny, That's a good word. They can be really whiny. A good sonnet, you relate to what is this rejection. You understand what it's like to be going through these hours or days and nights, wanting to be with somebody, but no one wants to pay any attention to you. Okay, so that's the beginning tradition of sonnets. So all this imagery, all these ideas that I'm telling you about are labeled as Petrarchan conceits. They're used and reused over and over and over again. So because of Petrarch, that's where we get that stereotype of a beautiful woman is blonde and blue-eyed with pale skin. You'll talk about her cherry red lips, that sort of logic. For the Italians, the relationship is typically the poet is male, the beloved is female. It has not been documented of any women in Italy writing these sonnets. That's not to say it hasn't happened. It just is not discussed and it's not documented. Okay. I would like to see more on this topic myself personally. Whereas in England, women were more at a liberty to be involved with this process. So you'll have women poets writing these poems to men as the beloved. Okay. So again, when they're bad, these conceits are obviously cliches. Okay, they're very overdramatic, as I say down here. They're more like soap operas. But when they're good, you relate to it. Okay, you pick up on this common story and you feel sorry for him, okay, or her. It's the same case of Romeo and Juliet. They may be love-struck teenagers, but somehow the way Shakespeare has written that play, you feel sorry for them. You sympathize with them. You want to help them. You want to remove these barriers that are preventing them from being happy. Okay. So if you just consider these like pop songs, you'll be fine. More about the themes involved. These are public declarations of love. And you don't just have one, you have a series. Okay? So Petrarch himself wrote a manuscript of poems. Sometimes it's labeled as canzoniere, sometimes it's labeled as rhyme sparse. Okay? But it's a public declaration of him stating his love for Laura. In his case, he wrote over 366 poems to her. 317 are actual sonnets. The others are different forms of poetry. Okay? And it's all about bereavement over the fact she won't return his affection, over the fact near the middle of the manuscript, she dies. Okay? And he loses any chance of being with her, but he knows she's in heaven. So because she's in heaven, he can pray to her and ask her to put in a good word to God so that I'll put it in terms of lust versus love. In the beginning, it sounds more lustful. Near the end of the sequence, it's more loving because he, in the end, is an old man and he wants to get into heaven. So he has stopped idolizing her and he's stopped objectifying her. He's using, and again, I use this loosely, he's using her in order to get into heaven because she is so perfect. She is the most wonderful, beautiful woman who ever existed. And he wants the world to know how beautiful she was when she was alive. Okay. When you read the full sequence, she never responds back to him. On occasion, he makes a statement which sounds as if there's a possibility that she's aware of him, but for the most part, she probably doesn't even know who he is. Okay, doesn't even know he's pining away in love for her. In fact, there's evidence in one or two of these poems that she's already married. So he's obsessing over this woman. It's the same courtly love situation that is being displayed to you in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, when Lady Bertilac is forcing Sir Gawain to do whatever she wants. She can get kisses from him because she has him under her control. Okay, now, what I have on the screen here, this is the rhyme scheme. So on the left is one formula, on the right is another formula. Both are considered Italian. In the end, you can get 4 different types of Italian sonnets. Okay, it all depends on how you start out the sequence. So the first stanza and the second stanza have to mirror in construction. So because this first stanza is A, B, B, A, the second stanza has to be A, B, B, A. So the B rhymes are echoing, likewise the A rhymes are echoing. So in Italian, it's easier to have common rhyming sounds. That's a common idea that's expressed in criticism. So I do like English versions of these Italian poems, and it can be done in English, don't get me wrong, but it just seems to work easier for the Italians. Okay, again, remember we're doing the math here. The way Petrarch set this up, you have a quatrain, and then 2 tercets. So again, the octave is composed of 2 quatrains. The sestet is composed of 2 tercets. Now, not to confuse you, but keep in mind, I said there are 4, and I've only displayed 2. I can take the A, B, B, A formula, A, B, B, A, A, B, B, A, and combine it with these tercets, C, D, C, C, D, C. And then I can take the A, B, formula and combine these 2 stanzas with these 2 tercets. Okay, that's how you get the 4. On the other hand, don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to identify if a poem is either Italian or English. Okay, but I do want you to be aware of the differences in the formula, at least on a thematic level. So again, the octave sets up these 2 stanzas, the octave, set up a theme. The remaining sestet will take that theme and shift it in a new direction or confirm and strengthen the previous direction. And that is an Italian sonnet. Okay, now the English sonnet from this week, week 12, is actually easier to explain. We've gone over the major hard part there. So the English, 200 years after the Italians, the English are going through their own Renaissance period. It's at the close of the later half of Henry VIII, and especially when Elizabeth took over later, Elizabeth I, she reinforced the Renaissance concept in England. That's why it's sometimes referred to as the Elizabethan age. because of Elizabeth. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you here are experiments by the English taking the Italian poem and making it exclusively English. They will continue holding the Petrarchan conceits. It's, again, for the first few hundred years, it's all about love. A sonnet has to be about love. So it isn't until the middle 1700s or beginning 1800s where people felt at liberty to experiment more with the subject. Okay, but when you say Renaissance poem, 9 times out of 10, it's about love. Now, as far as the English are concerned, Henry Howard, who's the Earl of Surrey, Henry Howard is attributed with inventing what is known as the English form. I have a little asterisk footnote here. So, sometimes people have given credit to Lord Thomas Wyatt as introducing this concept. So if you are reading criticism, which we'll be doing eventually, if you're reading criticism and it mentions Wyatt is the person who invented the English form, there's some discrepancy between who did it first. Personally, Wyatt was more into translating translating Italian sonnets into English and twisting them around to create new themes. But he's not developing, per se, a formula exclusively to write in English. Okay. Whereas Henry Howard is experimenting more, trying to find the perfect way of having English rhymes. Because again, in English, it's harder to develop a long series of rhymes. Be that as it may, the English version of the sonnet will follow the octave sestet formula. You'll have a theme established in the first 8 lines, and then the theme will be re-examined, let's call it that, re-examined in the sestet, the resulting final sestet. Okay. For the English, they want 3 sets of quatrains. So remember, quatrains are 4. Because each of the stanzas of the quatrains have unique rhymes, individual rhymes. They want 3 sets of them. So you've got 3 interchanging new rhymes within the stanzas. And 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so as a result, you have only 2 lines left over. Again, I'll show you an idea in just a second. That closing couplet will have the lesson of the poem. The main message is inserted into those last 2 lines. The whole poem traditionally must follow iambic pentameter. So there are 3 definitive elements in a English sonnet. Okay. It has to have iambic pentameter. It has to be discussing love. It has to have a volta. So those are your 3 concepts. Okay, so this is a poem by Henry Howard. In this particular case, I'm not going to read the poem, but I will point out he does use arcane language, antiquated language, even for his time period. So he's stating these love songs have to be of a bygone era of another generation of English-speaking individuals. So that's the reason he's using an older form of the language. Be that as it may, the rhyme scheme that he has here, this is what has become the established English sonnet form. A, B, A, B, C, D, C, D, E, F, E, F, G, G. So again, remember, you've got 3 quatrains. A, B is 1. CD, CD is 2, EF, EF is 3. So the rhymes you have in the first stanza will not appear in the second or third stanza. That's what it comes down to. The other thing I will point out, if you look at these numbers here in the middle, these are representing the meter. And it's almost a perfect 5 throughout the whole poem. Now, in part, when I created this, some of it could be due to an English 1600s accent is different than a American English accent in 2020. So keep that as a factoring. But these average out to be a perfect iambic pentameter. Okay. I do find it significant to point out that in line 9, the volta line has an extra half foot. And to me, that seems to be placing an emphasis on the volta and on a shift. This is more implied volta. But what's encouraging it, notice the first 4 lines, well, I was going to say something, I can't. Let me do it this way. The octave closes out with a sentence, the closing of a sentence. So you're taking a deeper breath before you move into the next stanza, the next quatrains, and then you have the word another. It's not as forceful of a transition from the octave to the sestet, but it's implied and it's there. Likewise, if you look at the theme, the octave is discussing an issue dealing with Venus. She's the main, I don't want to say instigator, but she's the main push of the theme. And in the sestet, it's Cupid. It shifts from Venus to Cupid. Although both of them are gods of love. So you've got that common parallel theme running between the two sections. This is another sonnet with, again, antiquated language. But in this case, I presented it to you slightly different. It is a perfect 5, a perfect iambic pentameter through the whole poem. It can be done, in other words. The ones attributed to Shakespeare, he once or twice has created the perfect iambic pentameter poem. And a couple of weeks ago, I showed that to you. It's number 18, Shall I Compare Thee to a Summer's Day? That is a perfect iambic pentameter poem. Likewise, this is. Now, what I also like about the English, as I said before, they like to play with this more. It's more experimental. In this case, Howard has placed the volta in the couplet. He did not place it up here in the 9th line. He has his theme running the full 13 lines, and then in the 12 lines, he has one theme, and then in the 13th line, he puts in the volta, which I made bold in red, and thus. And so, therefore, what he's done, the couplet becomes its own theme. What I like about this one sonnet in particular, you have all this information about what is going on in nature throughout the seasons. So it starts out in the sweet season with spring, basically. Then it shifts to summer, and then it shifts to winter. Okay, and within nature, all this activity is going on with animals meeting up with other animals, and they're being happy, and they're procreating, and their nature is fulfilling its duty in populating the world, but the poet is all alone and he's miserable. He sees all these pleasant things, and although his worries and his anxious behavior, that's what the word care means in this case, his anxiousness is being proven foolish with decays. He should be happy with all this positive imagery going on, in other words. But as his cares are being removed, yet, and here's another confirmation of the Volta, and yet I'm sorrowful. And it's because he's alone. Okay. The other thing that he does here that's a grand experiment, notice the rhyme scheme is alternating A, B throughout the whole 14 lines. A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, A. So he wants to prove that for the English, you can have a common rhyme scheme through the whole verse. So it does work. To me, it's a little too sing-songy and too repetitive of the rhyme, but nonetheless, he's got it here. And also, you might pick up, if you look carefully at the end words, he has the word springs in here twice. He has the word slings in here twice. So he was beginning to run out of possibilities here. But I still respect it. It's interesting. For English classes, it does provoke discussion. Okay. So that's the English sonnet. This is what, and specifically, let me use this, it's on page 3. Specifically, page 3 is an example of a traditional English sonnet. This is the rhyme scheme that you will need to remember whenever someone says English sonnet. Okay, so I'm going to post this video. I hope y'all are being safe. If you have any questions, as I say in all these videos, send me a note. And tomorrow we'll be addressing yet another experimentation for the sonnet. Do pay close attention as I go over these. Pay close attention to the imagery that's being used, the themes that are being used, and the attitude of the poet speaker. Not all of these are going to be, oh, woe is me, as woe is me. They're not all as whiny and sad as they're set up to be. So I'll talk more about the stories that are involved with the sonnets, and we'll actually read through one or some of the sonnets as we go along, as I explain them. Okay? If you get any questions, just let me know. That's what I'm here for. Talk to y'all later.